some FNCS winner knowledge from that OCE team, switched with players from all the way around the map, players from Bugha who's up more to the north side of the map, you got Miru who's up on the east side of the map. You know, every team basically has switched up almost on the NA East region, so all these teams, you got to think this season's got a much wider knowledge than they had previously.
I mean, absolutely. Looking at the list here, only 4 teams have stuck together from the previous season, at least that qualify for this setting right here, right now. So the bulk of this entire lobby is going to be a mix and matching up of all kinds of different players banding together to see if they can take a crack, take a shot at walking away with this whole thing. To kick it off, though, Muzmir and Bugha here are going to be the first players to touch down uncontested here at the Misty Meadow.
2 launch pads already in Bugha's inventory. That is looking awfully hot for them. They're looking super good. But moving over more to the southeast side of the map, where we've seen Zervo already picking up 2 eliminations and wiping the fishing boat spawn, and didn't know they were doing the Kree strat during their qualification. That would be Derpy's team, was looking to basically just out heal the zone all the way through, and so far in game number 1 doesn't really seem to have worked out so well, unfortunately.
Yeah, that Kree strat is definitely what we like to call a rare bird, right? It's something you don't really see very often. Very seldom do you see that kind of strategy being used. But when it does get used, I mean, it can work out. Here's Acorn, Jack, and Slash right now trying to work with one another. This is a very popular position to put yourself on if you're trying to get your early surge, which we should be expecting surge for the majority of the games, I think, today.
Yeah, game 1 always starts with really high thresholds, tons of players still alive. Game 2 usually speeds up a ton. Then game 3, they figure it out a little bit more, right? So they relax a bit. That bottom left corner of the map, I'm definitely interested in checking in a lot, because Acorn, Jack, and Slack seems to be contested by TK's team down there, which is really awkward. We saw Speedy's team moving on in too, and they seem to be fighting another team at the same time. So that kind of southwest corner of the map definitely looks a little bit messy. Very similar to this fight that we're seeing right now in retail. 2v2, each team has lost a member, and it's just going to be a bit of a stalemate.
Not only that, Smack Niddle and Casker, they've been landing here for a long time, right? Smack and Little, they know how to play this draw spot. They know how to work this one out. For X at Spade and Voyu here trying to work this one. I'm feeling like they're coming in with more of that limited information, kind of how we talked about teams that have the experience, have the reputation of a drop. For Spade and Voyu to back on out is, I think, showcasing the fact that, yeah, they haven't been contesting this drop as long as Smack and Niddle probably have.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm trying to remember an NA East tournament where I haven't seen Nittle, Cactus, Master. I've combined them all at this point. Nittle, Casker, and Smacked all landing here at the same time, and they know how to play this perfectly. As you can see, they managed to pick up the reboot straight away. So now this is a 3v2 situation, but they did manage to get a big beam there off onto, I think that was Smacked. So this is still going to be a big fight going on, but Voil now down to 10 HP, a single build, barely any ammo in his inventory either. So this is, even though they have the disadvantage in numbers, seems like Smacked is going to have to definitely push it up, but a single bullet maybe will pick him out.
Yeah, definitely. Voyu is going to go down here. Now, mind you, this is one of the 4 teams that have actually stuck together with one another. So keep a hyper eye out on for any team that has actually decided to stay with one another during this season, because those are the ones we really want to keep an eye out on. How different do players as Mutes-bound teammates work with one another versus these veteran trios that have been here before? The 3-man squad's not going to have a single problem wrapping this one up. Smack's going to get picked up here, but it's Niddle. Niddle with the 3 elims to kick things off right now.
But he's pumped about that one, feeling like a little hard carry coming on out in the early game fights. He can brag at least about that to his teammates, but they're going to get the revive up onto Smacked, so they're still in this as a full trio, but that fight's definitely slowed them down a ton. Same with going back over to Jack, Acorn, Slack. I said I wanted to check out this kind of southwest corner of the map, and it seemed like TK's team has pushed them out of the swamps and pushed them down into this corner. And man, the loot right now not looking too great for them. We can see their shields are pretty much all healed up, but I've seen Acorn, Slack, and Jack in particular last season perform very, very well with minimal loot, so I'm not overly concerned about how this is going to play in coming on forward. But we can see they've already got the launch pad too, so although potentially the weapons, the ammo, and the shield isn't looking that great, we do see at least some mobility, and hopefully they can get some materials back up as well, in particular those hard metals and hard materials of the metal. Maybe going back into Slurpee here.
I agree. I mean, this is definitely one of those teams that can operate with the bare minimals, right? All they need is the necessities, and you can see an Acorn's loadout. He's got a shotgun, he's got an AR, and a couple extra heals. Once they get max material, put them in endgame. They'll make it work. They'll find their upgrades. But as we swing on over to Jack, he's got a little bit more to work with here. That upgraded pump shotgun there is definitely going to go a long way. And as a quick stat here, 38 of the players today competed in last season's finals, just showcasing how many folks are making their reappearance right now here for the round 1 qualifier, or I should say the later stages of the round qualifier here, but you get what I'm saying. This is the finals, essentially trying to throw you and jumpstart your way to the big stage in a couple weeks.
Indeed. Remember, top 5 teams today will make it through straight to the finals. Everyone else will go through the semifinals. Oh, well, they'll gain their series points to try and make sure they go through the semifinals. So what we're going to be looking out for is those leaderboard, the top 5. And if you fall slightly under that, it's obviously great. You'll probably make a ticket through to the semifinals. But let's be real. Let's be real. Top 5 is what these people are going to be looking out for.
Yeah, that top 5 slot is really what you want to go in and break your way into. A little fight here between Posed, XMB, and the opponent team as we jump on over to Commandment, Scented, and Stretch here, pushing out Pikes, Boxer, and Ethor. What looks like they cut them off potentially from their looting route here.
It seems like it. I mean, Scented and Commandment in particular with Edgy previously have been known that if they want to claim a spot, they will fight for it, right? They will push you off of that position and they will just go for the fight. They will W key because they're looking for those Storm Surge spots. And that seems to be, obviously we missed just the start of that, what they've ended up doing here. They've now claimed a position which gives them such great visibility over the entire of the map, right? Look at the angles that they have, obviously spraying right now up onto teams near the Cami split, but also across mainly to the west of them into Corny Crops. They've got so many good angles that they can get tags on that side, and like this is a key spot that you often see for this specific kind of zone.
It's a team that understands the importance of key positioning, and Stretch brings that knowledge to the table as well. Remember, what Stretch brought to the table for his previous trio was absolute innovation as well. So this is a team that's definitely interesting, but I would say not clashing personalities, but clashing play styles, right? We kind of briefly talked about Stretch and his high ground style and how it's going to kind of mold into what this low ground, a combination of Sense and Commandment, are going to bring here. So today's end games, these next 6 end games, especially when the pressure is on, I think is going to be the most important, because when you look at the entirety of all the players that are here and kind of laid out before us, there's not a team that really stands out to me as these are the high ground guys, right? These are the teams that are going to go for it on half and half out. And that alone, to me, is going to be interesting because new stories are going to be developed here.
Yeah, you always would have said the Stretch's team. If you're like, that's the guy.
Not anymore.
Like, this guy, he's gone on height, and not anymore indeed. And when I watched through their playstyle from the games to the cash cups, it seemed very, very, a little bit janky, but it worked, right? It seemed like they weren't fully understanding each other's playstyles just yet. So for me, looking at the qualifiers so far, the early rounds, they've been looking really, really strong, and it seems like they're just going to get better as the weeks go on. So if we have a good performance today, I expect them to have an even better performance in the finals as well.
Here's a team that I'm super excited for. By the way, I know my pick was on Edgy, Threats, and Rise, but there's something about Calculator this season. I just think I think he's got it. All right. I know people sleep on him, but I've always been a fan of Calc, and there's something about the way he's been playing lately. He's been putting in the practice. He hasn't really dropped a beat since his return to Fortnite competitive after his short break. And I think because of that, there's something special developing in his playstyle and his consistency. So if Bank Teller and is this Speedy here? At this point, it's hard to tell with all these guys. Is this Looter right here? I was going to say, yeah. At this point, I get confused. But what are the TNA boys? If this team is a team that can back him up and they can actually mesh really well, which they've done a decent job of so far. I mean, making it this far is a telltale sign of that. I feel like Calc's going to stand out.
Yeah, and also Calc just placed 13th in the solo cash cup, and he's tweeted himself the climb back. So he understands, right? The grind's on right now this season's absolutely putting in the work, and it seems to be showing off the fact that so far they've made it here. And I like this team composition too, with Bank on his side, but also with Looter. Like, I feel like a lot of people in Looter's previous team, he didn't give the respect because Muzz was just, obviously, he was streaming, he was making content. It was very, very clear how good Muzz was, and I think Looter was undershadowed about how truly skilled he is, and the fact that he wasn't necessarily practicing as much in those previous seasons. Right now, I hope the fact on this team they perform really well, and he can be shown just truly how good he is.
Yeah, we're gonna be able to see that hopefully unfold here as the moments continue. But Acorn, interestingly enough, has a sideways legendary minigun, and we'll be able to see how that comes into play. That's a powerful weapon that a lot of teams don't, I'd say, necessarily target or attempt to acquire because the resources involved in it. But if you get one, I mean, that's a game-winning weapon.
It is, and in the first cash game of the season, I don't think people had really understood how to use it properly yet. But coming on through, I've seen a ton more earlier in the qualifiers, people using it. I didn't really see much in EU so far, but in a lot of the round 2, round 3s, there's a way more utilization of it. It is awkward to get because obviously you have to go into the sideways. It takes a ton of time, but man, if you get it in endgame and you start spraying people's floors, if you play like a low to mid ground layer, or you're just trying to take height, it's so difficult, so difficult to be able to fight against. It's like you're trying to be double or triple sprayed with the rate of fire that it has. Ooh, so super strong from it right now. Trashy, look, he doesn't need a double or triple spray. He's just hitting all those shots anyway.
No, he actually does need it. They're 260 below the surge. By the way.
He does need it.
So those are great tags, but that is so not enough. They're going to have to figure out what the next play is. It looks like they're going to go ahead and back themselves up right now, possibly go for somewhat of a gun-to-gun fight. Maybe just go for the long-range gunfight as opposed to jumping in or diving into one of these boxes. Now they're getting pressure from multiple different angles, and it looks like Trashy did do enough there to go ahead and find the rest of the surge, the additional surge he needed, and this is why they're distancing themselves, and now they're positioned on that outer edge of the map. So they have I'd say a controlling and dominant position over the teams that are going to start rotating in here.
Yeah, and if you're confused about how the Storm Surge leaderboard works, you got to remember everyone's doing a specific amount of damage. So if you're 250 below and then suddenly they're 250 above, it doesn't necessarily mean that they got 500 damage in that time. It means that potentially a team who was near them on the leaderboard was eliminated, so it moved their position up. So now they're above. They could have also got tags on top of that, and it's ever changing. So you can see them starting to drop down more now, which means that more players are getting tags in the lobby, which is moving them further and further down the leaderboard. So that's where the pressure starts to come in particular when you see the fact that I think last time I saw the player count, there was 89 players still left in this, which is incredibly stacked for a first game. Yes, and it's still 89 players. So many people on this edge. They're doing a great job getting a bunch of tags because Colazo's team alongside Lazar and Trashy last season did struggle a little bit with Storm Surge, but really seemed to have nailed it by the end of the season, in particular in the finals. So I hope that they don't struggle today in game number 1, because we could see a great performance from them if they don't.
I agree. Anything can happen. Here's the team below the surge right now. It's going to honestly all depend on how this fight breaks out here, and they're pushing on in. Luckily, they do have themselves positioned inside the storm line, so pressure's on the team sliding in from the back, and the shots are landing here, and the exchanges are going down as well, and one goes down. Quack and Brandon have to save the teammate, but they do end up getting the knock in the process. This is on to Build here, who gets fully finished, and that is enough to stay or keep them alive for a little bit. But come on, 16 more players have to go down. It's not over just yet.
It's not over just yet, as we see Sam start again. Same with Laylam at the same time. Two creative warriors who've made it through here into the round number 4. You love to see it. So they've obviously lost their teammate, which we just witnessed. Now they're super low, and at the same time going to be really time restricted by the fact that Storm Surge is going to be pressing onto them too, and now they're the numbers disadvantage. It's obviously they managed to get the res up on 200 out the air in the other team, and they have to start battling through all of these old builds that they have in there. They've got popped the Chili Chug splashes, and I'm thinking this is just going to be an aggressive box dive style of play and just try to again hope for the best, hit their shots, because there's still 5 players need to go down to the Storm Surge right now. So there is a lot of action that needs to happen for these guys.
Yeah, not only for them, other players as well. Edgy catches one in the feed, Eclipse, and so does Downsy. All, of course, pretty popular trios if you ask us here. Rise is going to find one too. And take a look, the pressure here from Quack and Trio was enough to back off Laylam and everyone else there, and luckily they do end up surviving here for Colazo, Trashy, and Lazar. They're back on the prowl here. Look at the pocket of players sitting on top of one another. This is what happens when the surge ends up just happening with that many players alive. Players tend to focus and pretty much move on in on top of one another, and what that means though, Reese, is a ton of these guys are going to be pretty much in shambles, right? A lot of them possibly exchanging shots with one another and expending tons of resources.
Like, you know, these players in this kind of circle, in this congestion here, on their hands and knees praying right now that 4th zone appears on them. Like, you know, they're just saying, please don't make us have to rotate through this big empty open space with what seems like 20 players at the same location, because for a couple of these teams, it's going to be extremely messy when they do it. and I want to make sure that they are easily able to make that rotate as much as possible.
Absolutely. Here is Colazo. He's trying to continue to do his rotate right now, and he's got so much excessive loot here as he's moving back and forth here. It's really going to come down to whether or not, you know, this team, Colazo, Lazar, and Trashy, end up using this excess material to make their next rotate, right, Reese? So they have all this additional mats, heals, etc. to work with, so they should be a-okay. On the other side, though, here's a look at Edgy Threats and Rise's position. They put themselves underneath that indestructible bridge. They're basically trying to stay away from opponents. They have 4 elims.
Yeah, they got 4 elims, tons of materials, tons of, obviously, mobility at the same time there. So for them, this might be a blessing. And the fog rolls in, which a lot of these teams may actually be thankful for. That zone pulls up to the northeast, it would seem like. So for basically every single player in the zone, I'm pretty sure they're all going to have to make the rotate at this point. With 65 still in it, this is going to be rough. Obviously not being the one that's basically the deepest down at the back of the storm. Well, he's already out. He's already out.
Oh my gosh.
Our team manages to pick him up. Edgy's team is already hitting the rotate, using the storm to their advantage. And look how little people are in this circle. Basically the entire lobby is not in here, and I would not be surprised if we start to see some players start to use their launch pads to get on in here. Yes, you can see in that bottom right, players moving very, very quickly, and that will be a pad play coming out from them, and they don't want to risk making sure that they're staying and being held by all these teams and being the result of this triple spray like Edge has just been, and he's been obviously tagged up big time from that, which is going to drain tons of the resources.
And that's the issue of playing those low ground elevation points this early in the map. They have to make the rotate up that river's edge. They use the water, but it does expose you. So little risk versus reward type play there for Bugha, Miro, and Muzz, though. This is, again, that superstar trio. Like we said, some of the best coming together right now to really figure things out for this season. And they're doing an excellent job right now. Just the material conservation onto Bugha's inventory there is a telltale sign that he has had an excellent job positioning themselves so far. And even now they can look into the moving wind tunnels here and take advantage of those free tags, essentially, as players are trying to hop on in. Look at this. Yeah, beautiful angle from underneath Reese.
It's beautiful angle from beneath, but for these guys, I've always seen them so far, well, I say always in the first Cash Cup so far, with a really, really strong early and mid game. But what I'm a little bit more concerned about is the fact, yeah, they're an all-star team, but when I've watched their Cash Cup games, that kind of end game looked a little bit shambles, right? Like, we kept seeing a ton. I think the 4 games in a row, they placed between 5th to 10th, which you might think that's really, really consistent, but there were all games that they definitely had the capability to get a top 3 out of. And I think, like, because, you know, what Vivid said at the top of the show, where Bugha didn't really want to tarp, it seemed like he hadn't done that role in a long time, and he was constantly putting the team into not ideal positions, which meant that it was a bit more difficult to get refreshes from Biro and Muzz's POV. I think his priorities were a little bit off. When I look back at the rounds yesterday, man, they were just getting top 3 after top 3. So I really, like, honestly, in 1 week, seems like they fixed a ton of the issues. Obviously, right now, today, round 4, will be the time to tell to see if they actually have when it gets to the end game.
And that's the thing about trios, right? Role distribution. With how many teams have broken up, fragmented, compartmentalized themselves, whatever you want to call this entire snakening that happened on NAEs. Essentially, yeah, someone's got to fill in roles. Players are going to not be as comfortable maybe if they're just the oddball out, and you have to essentially find a team, right? Whoever's willing to take you, whatever's available, whatever roles are there. And it may not always be so pretty. But for Agers, Degen, and Kanata, another team we really didn't expect to come together. I think this is one that is well-rounded as well. Kanata is an exceptional player. I'm pretty sure that he can fill in any role needed for Degen and Agers, who's got the full team synergy built in. This is just a powerhouse pickup.
Yeah, and obviously they lost skills previously, and picking up Kanata right now, look, if for any team, if you just pick up Kanata, leave him to just fight people, like there's almost no one who's better than that on this region, realistically. In particular, like, his mechanical prowess is almost unmatched on the region. So for that team, I'm excited to see how they play in this set lobby. Another team I'm excited for is the team we're watching right now, Tragics. That was my pick. I watched a ton of Tragics' gameplay over the kind of course of the Cash Cup. I watched every single game. He is a monster with the charged shotgun. I mean, I think the reason for their success so early in the season is not purely, let's be real, they're a really good trio as well, but like hugely dependent on the fact that he is so good at getting refreshes. It was always him that had refresh after refresh. Now when I say that, I'm a bit worried that he only has a great pump though.
And just talking about things that are key metrics for success, finding these mid-game elims are important as well. Tragic's a day in jam for your pick, already turning up the gas pedal here, and they're going to be able to pick up some of that loot with that sweet harpoon there. On high ground though, Booga, Miro, and Muzz have managed to fully solidify a very wide metal base, and they've left the backside open, which means they've allowed themselves to fully structure up this wide positioning here without overburning and committing materials. Unfortunately, it is going to pull all the way across here, but hey, they have the advantage and the natural height right now to play with.
It's going to be a classic case of who can manage to build up at the front side of zone. For them, I'm slightly concerned because Booga only has 77 AR ammo, which is slightly concerning to me. I would also, if I was Booga, I'm dropping that gold pump to one of my fraggers at the back. Like, if he's tarping, this is one of the things, obviously, I was talking about earlier, that the role distribution may not be fully established yet, because if you have two fraggers that you really believe in, you give them that gold pump right now. So I want to see how this plays out for them. Potentially, Miro and Muzz both have one too, but we'll figure out when we actually see them in the end game. Here's the launch pads coming out. It's first moving. This is a critical time to see who is going to be able to land at the front, build up, and claim high ground going into this zone.
There it is. It's time to really put up or shut up at this moment here. Who's going to touch down and claim this high ground first? Who's going to fully commit with the belief that they can hold it this early on? Booga's going to step on down. Defensive stance taken at first to gather information and look around. They're going to target the next team trying to go up above. And are they going to go for the edit down? Does indeed look for it. And that's down to their fellow TNA members there as Day rolls on up and finds that one there too. And that's going to be the full pickup for the loop. But look at this. Miro and Booga, they're jumping on up. They need the surge tags here, Reese.
They need the surge tag. They've just managed to get above 84 above, and any shot will be critical now. But now they're stuck at the back of the zone. They're going to hit the short pad to see if they can get a front of the front side of the zone. And it seems like they've managed to claim themselves a good layer down there at the front, but a little bit split. But up on high ground, Lazar P, Colazo, and Trashy, a team that we saw almost struggling with Storm Surge earlier on, and now in the commanding position in the zone, holding high ground with 5 eliminations so far. This is looking so good for them coming out of game number 1.
Yeah, there's no deadline up here either. They have all the time in the world to work with right here, and the distance between the opponents as well. Take a look at the beautiful split right now. Each of the individuals playing a separate layer, trying to look for different types of angles with this high ground hold right now. There goes Colazo reconnecting up there. Rise, Edgy, and Threats, though, playing the mid-ground layer perfectly right now, but it seems like they're getting that second height pressure here. Now, this is worrisome for anyone up top, though. They do have a harpoon as well. They can make big plays here. Rise is going to find some white tags, and so far, it's looking very good for these teams.
Looking very good. And look who's on the low ground. Commandment scented alongside Stretch as well. Managed to claim the full low. That's why Rise isn't down there. They have Steve. Trashy managed to pick up another elimination down the low. Booga picks up another one as well. He's got 2 gold shotguns in his inventory, so now he's not hogging 1. He's got 2 instead. But I think Miro went down. No, it was Muzz who ended up going down in this sticky engagement, not being in the best position at all, and the charge is dropped. And let's see if they can pop off. See what he can do. See what he can utilize with this heavy machinery that he has in his inventory so far. And Miro picks one up at the back of the zone. Little 4 opens up for Booga. Can he connect with a shot? He's just waiting for someone to go through there.
Now, what's exciting about this is Edgy still up. Scented is still up on the low ground. So is Degen, and Ager's just next door. There's Kanata right there. But no, Degen's going to go down on the low ground to the hands of Scented here. He's got the angles that he's looking for. And instead, it's actually Stretch who snipes that elim away. And look at this. They're on 7 elims in the low ground. I was so curious as to how this team was going to be able to figure things out with the new dynamic introducing Stretch, and it looks like they're getting along just fine right now.
They are. I said Stretch looked a little bit uncomfortable, but with 4 eliminations, he looks very comfortable. Same with Booga. Picking up one on Tragics. He was left as a solo with 0 materials. He didn't even manage to get the siphon from that knock that he got down here, so he's going to have to pace himself. Opens the edit, hits another big one to Riftmull. He's now going to drop down onto the full low ground. The players down below hitting big shots onto him there. He trades, but no, Booga's picked up as well.
Excellent job right there. Top 4 for him, but in top 3, once again, Scented, Commandment, and Stretch doing exactly what they do best, making end games, picking up placement points. Colazo and crew have done an excellent job to walk their way through for free here on height. But look at how many elims. It's also 8 from above as well, and they're setting themselves up for this potential victory royale, but it's not going to be for free. It's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy. It's a traditional 3v3. Sentis team just has to start looking up and spraying. It doesn't seem like they have the materials to hold the full low ground. It's going to be a battle of who can aim, and Trashy goes down. Lazar goes down as well. Colazzo left alive up on the high ground. The only player remaining from this team, he wanted to play heal off, but Scented Commandment and Stretch said, no, we're just going to spray down. We're going for the eliminations. Now he's stuck in the back of the zone, but will those 3 chug splashes that he have be enough? I don't think they will.
Wait a
Commandment
second.
goes down at the same time. Colazzo gets beamed. No, one shot connects, and it's going to be Scented, Stretch, and Commandment who end up winning game number 1 of the FNCS Qualifier 1.
And what was so beautiful about that low ground play is Commandment and Scented do this every single time. They make it to the final zones, and then they look up. They turn and burn before you can even get comfortable there. And Stretch was just a perfect fit to that puzzle.